So our workout this morning, I was working out with our friend Jake. Anders was sleeping or doing something else, and
What the I just,
wow, you're not supposed to swear.
is this just
That's
like an
inappropriate.
immediate roasting? You asked me to be on the podcast and then just roast me?
It's not a bad way to start. But we were talking about, I mentioned this idea of standards, and it's something that I heard on a recent podcast episode. And it's this idea that you get your standards, not your goals. And this is something that I am really interested in because in looking back over my life, this is kind of the way that I've always operated is setting standards in my life that I hold myself to, things that are just uncompromising. And as I hold myself to those standards, eventually the goals follow and the things that I want to accomplish, those follow. I think it's just really important to understand that if you're serious about accomplishing big goals, then you need to have really high personal standards. You need to have a high quality of work. You need to really put your effort and attention into the smallest of details all the time. And I think kind of how you do one thing is how you do everything. Like the things that you do when nobody's looking, that is a true indication of what your standards are.
Like big or small type of thing.
Yeah, big or small, and it usually is small stuff that you need to just be uncompromising about and really hold yourself to. So it really comes down to the actions that you're taking when no one's watching, the discipline that you're maintaining in your entire life, and the expectations and standards that you hold yourself to and also hold the people around you to. I think that's an important part as well, and just kind of cultivating the focus on standards in your life. So you just need to understand that the higher your standards, the more success you're going to earn, the happier you're going to be, the better life is going to be as a whole. And I think lots of people just hyper focus on goals. And I do think it is important to have clear goals so you have an idea of what your direction is. But in terms of getting from where you are now to where you want to be, I think one of the main things that you need to focus on is holding yourself to a certain standard. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about how to set standards in your life and then how to strengthen them over time. So, I'd love to begin by just asking you, how do you think about standards and how do you kind of apply those into your life?
Standards wasn't something that was present in my life until the Marine Corps, and that's where I don't know. I don't think it was present before the Marine Corps because I never viewed myself with like my potential of things or what I was capable of doing, or just kind of half-ass things, you know. And so when I joined the Marine Corps, what they really just instill in you is the honor, courage, commitment, and it's like it's something that gets put on repeat in your head. And I'm sure that we're going to talk about this later, but the way that it gets instilled into you and you really build upon that standard or honor, courage, and commitment is just by following it over and over again, day after day after day, and it just compounds into this this structure or this mental thought process or formula that you are refusing to ever break. So the way that I would really ultimately define standard is like your moral code that you refuse to go against or break.
Yeah.
And so ever since the Marine Corps, I've held a standard of how I show up and do things and kind of my work ethic of things or how I serve individuals. And the more that I've been following it, the more and more I'm able to show up and the higher standards that I set for myself because I continue to show how I can set that standard even higher, you know?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think that's why it's really important to have these two parts in saying the first part is like I am setting these standards in my life, and then the second part is I'm working to strengthen them over time. And every single time that you execute on a standard in a particular way, you are strengthening that standard and you're just further ingraining it in your life. And I think having drill instructors or other people around you to just really kind of pound it into your head. I
Not
guess
many people have that.
I guess
but-
that's a pretty effective way
Yeah.
at building those standards. So do you feel like you just had a totally different view of your personal standards after you got out of boot camp? Or
What exactly do you mean by that?
I guess, how would you define your standards when you went in, and how did those change over time? Like, what were the major changes in your standards through that period?
Before, like I mentioned, I would say I did not have standards. I think I was just kind of, I don't know, I was very like go with the flow type of person, like whatever, like life's awesome, let's just have fun type of thing. And I never had like a growth mindset before the military. And so when I went into the Marine Corps, boot camp is like where they really like rewire how you think and how you make yourself view yourself. So they kind of like break you down and build you up. And I think that the way that I have established my standard, or as I would define it as like my moral code, it was a very aggressive approach. And I know that most people don't take that journey. I don't know. As far as like, it was a complete 180 from before Marine Corps to like after boot camp. And then throughout that, it's just like with the more responsibilities and with leadership roles, the tasks at hand, like whether it was stateside or during a deployment, I don't know, like things just the situations just kind of were heightened and amplified, which allowed me to set higher and higher standards, not only for myself, but for those that I led. And that helped me redefine what my standard was as well by seeing how other people react to my standards, if that makes sense. Yeah. So it's just like this, it was a cycle of of compounding, of me proving to myself of where I'm at, and also seeing how other people react to my standards. And it allowed me to create kind of this, like I said, moral code, which what I have carried into my life up until this point and will forever for the rest of my life. So it will always continue to build and grow. But there was a pivotal point in my life, which I would say is the 4 years of the Marine Corps, that has established the foundation of that standard.
Yeah, so I look at standards in a very similar way, and I tried to kind of boil it down to a single sentence, and I came up with a standard is an unwavering commitment to excellence. And when I am focusing on a particular standard, I execute to that standard in every area of my life that is related to that standard. So like in every single situation where I'm presented with a particular standard, we'll get into this a little bit more, but like I know one of your personal standards, and this is a small thing, but I think it's a good example. One of your personal standards is when I'm walking outside and I see a piece of trash, I pick it up.
Unless it's like a baby diaper or something.
Okay,
but
well,
yes,
I guess that doesn't really reinforce my point here. I hold myself to a standard unless it's a dirty diaper.
there are exceptions when it comes to the trash.
Yeah, okay,
outside.
that's a good point.
I guess a really good example of a standard that I will forever hold true to is something that is one of my pet peeves that you do. Do you know what that is?
Being late?
Yeah. A huge standard in my life is being on time, because I respect everyone around me. I respect my own time. I respect other people's time. And I want people to view me as someone that they can be reliant on.
Yeah.
And
I agree. That's a really important standard. That is something that I need to work on. But
this was not me trying to roast you, but that's probably to define what one of my standards. That would be the go-to that I would say.
Man, so everyone just realized that I was about to give Honors a compliment about him picking up trash and how amazing of a standard that is.
I always have to turn. I have to figure out how I can roast Leif eventually.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the point is, okay. So we'll use that example because we have a caveat with the dirty diapers in the previous example. So, yeah, one of honor's standards is, hey, I'm on time 100% of the time, and I'm not going to compromise on that. And yeah, maybe you get into a car accident or something, and it just forces you to not be on time. But the main point is, in every single situation, I am not going to be the one who is not holding myself to the standard.
Correct.
And that is my main point, is that it's this unwavering commitment to executing in a particular way in a particular situation. So I want to give some examples on how to set standards in your life and how those standards actually contribute to the accomplishment of your goals. So let's say that your goal is to lose 20 pounds, as a simple example. You can say that your standards in that case are to, one, follow a diet and track your nutrition every single day. So you just have an unwavering commitment to that. And there's a lot of overlap between standards and habits, which is actually something Jake and I were talking about at the gym this morning. But it's this idea that my standard is I am following this diet and I'm going to hold myself to this, and that is uncompromising. Another standard would be, hey, I train with purpose and intensity a few times per week. Hopefully that includes some kind of resistance training because you're going to get the best results from that. But that would be another example of a standard. I hold myself to training in this way. And also the intensity level at which I train. I don't just go to the gym and go through the motions. I think that's a standard that more people should adopt. You might have the consistency, you might have the habit of going to the gym, but the standard part there is that I bring a certain level of commitment. I execute at a certain level for this particular habit. So I think that is how I view the difference between a habit and a standard. It is how I am showing up, how I am actually doing this, and what my standard of excellence truly is. Another example, if your goal is to lose 20 pounds, another example of a standard would be, hey, I'm active beyond my workouts. Maybe you set a step count, a daily step count. That's something that we're big proponents of if your goal is fat loss especially. So a 10,000 step count per day is a good goal to focus on. It's a good standard to hold yourself to. Another thing would be, hey, I'm holding a standard of tracking my progress in a meaningful way, and I'm doing that every single day, every single week, however you're kind of tracking that. Another standard would be, I am cultivating accountability in my life. I am somebody who holds myself accountable to other people, and that can be a standard that I'm bringing into my life, whether it's friends, family members, a coach, something like anybody. I always work to cultivate accountability in my life. So those are some examples of standards for somebody who is working to lose body fats.
Yeah.
Do you have any other additions to that?
I think that's a great definition or an example of setting standards in your life.
Yeah.
And I think it has to start with something like that. I think for most people, just like taking the first step in your health journey or in a relationship or a career path. It's like you kind of have to get your feet wet first before you fully immerse into it. Unless you go through boot camp.
Yeah.
So
then you have no choice.
Then you absolutely have no choice, and you either adapt or you're out. So I think, again, it's kind of just like with consistency with your progress in health and fitness, where it's just like it just compounds over time, and then you start seeing where that standard is or seeing the results in your physique, and then you're able to define it. I don't think it's something that you can immediately define because like when I went through boot camp, when they say honor, courage, commitment, that went in one ear and out the other ear in the very beginning. Like, sure, cool, that sounds great. That sounds attractive and sexy. It's like, I get that. But at the end of boot camp, my definition of honor, courage, and commitment was just like completely different because I went through hardships. I was able to perform, execute the things that we've learned through that lens of that standard with other Marines, or trainees, recruits at that time. And then I was able to continue to build that throughout my entire military career. So it's just like I didn't know what it was. Then I understood the definition, and then I refined it, and I created my own moral code from that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense. So another example of some standards would be in like your professional life. So in the example of, hey, my goal is to build a business, like build a successful business, then the standards that you need to hold yourself to might be, hey, I am willing to work long hours. I'm willing to work mornings, evenings, weekends. I'm willing to put in the extra effort, because for most people, they probably start in a job, and then they want to transition to kind of the side hustle, and maybe that's something that they eventually want to build into their main kind of professional career. And that would be a standard that you would have to hold yourself to. Hey, my standard is that I put in the extra time, and I do this extra time that most people are not willing to do. That is my standard. Another one, another standard that I have personally found to be important in building a business is I live below my means, and I reinvest everything that I possibly can back into the business to fuel growth. So that might be another one of your standards, is just, hey, I look at this is how I look at kind of reinvesting what I make in the business. Another standard can be, should be giving my clients or my customers an amazing experience, like a world-class experience, and just saying, hey, my standard is that I hold myself to the highest possible level of service to the people that I am grateful enough to have the opportunity to serve. And I think that one is really important. If you're working to build a business, you need to understand that like the fact that people are willing to pay you for what you're doing, that is a huge blessing. And if you are not like really, if you are taking that for granted, you are going to lose.
Yeah.
And
well, that's why one of my standards is holding our employees to the same standards.
Yeah, that's important. Like leading by example and kind of setting the standard for other people. It's like boot camp, but not as strict.
Yeah,
as serious.
Yeah, totally.
Another standard would be, hey, I hire intelligent people to help me grow this business. Like I have a standard of setting a high bar for the types of people that I want to bring into our team. Another would be, hey, I have the standard of continuing education. I am constantly working to accumulate knowledge and guidance from other successful entrepreneurs through podcasts, through books, through some kind of mentorship. Maybe you have a business coach or some kind of mentor who can help guide you along that journey. I think that's really important as well. So I just wanted to give another example of how setting standards would look outside of health and fitness. And I think I wanted to bring that up because it's really important to set standards in every single area of your life. And I think how you do one thing is really how you do everything. So if you only set standards in your health and fitness and you don't really set any clear standards in your family relationships, in your career, in other areas of your life, I think that is going to detract from the standards that you're trying to hold yourself to in health and fitness.
Well, I'll give you some food for thought here. It's like, I think and this is for me personally, I think this is the same for a lot of people that have like these standards or moral codes. It's like when I think of the moral codes, my moral codes or standards, the ones that I follow through with on a daily basis is just something that the standard is to have that in every area of my life, right? But then you have specific standards within specific areas of your life. So, but it feeds off of kind of like the core standards. Does that make sense? So it's just like, it's kind of like a web.
So you have overarching standards,
so
and
like,
then it comes down to like
exactly
different areas.
So it's not like a different set of standards for one area of life compared to the next. It's like, so for me, the example I would give is one of my moral codes is integrity, right? So that goes into all areas of my life, because I want to be on time for those people, because everyone in all different areas of my life. So I hold myself to that standard of showing up and respecting their time. But in addition to that, it's like you can have like things working off of that. Like in my relationship, I want to show up on time, but then I have a standard on how I utilize that time. And so that's kind of how I work off of, like, it's kind of like the core values, honor, courage, commitment in the Marine Corps. It's like 3 simple words, but it branches off and it gets defined differently depending on the task at hand within the Marine Corps and the relationship with the individual that you have, or working relationship or so forth. So I think it's kind of having, I don't know, not to get like biblical or anything, it's like the 10 Commandments, right? It's like you work off of those, but it's just your code.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really important to understand that like these standards, like, yeah, you can't have one standard in a particular area of your life and then do things differently in another area.
Right.
Like, you have to have those overarching standards that you really hold yourself to. And yeah, there has to be actual meaning behind those to you. So yeah, good additions. I want to talk a little bit about my personal standards, and I just want to bring up a handful of them, and I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts on, I don't know, my standards, or like how you kind of think through things. One of my standards is that I must always strive for self-improvement. Like, if I am not better next week, next month, next year than I am now, that would conflict with the standards I'm holding myself to. So since my first year of college, I've been on a consistent path of self-development, self-improvement, personal development. I have constantly sought mentors and resources to continually level myself up personally, professionally, in the gym, in our business. I always work to try to improve myself over time. And that has really enabled me to build what I like to call a growth mindset, which is something you brought up earlier. And that's probably the most valuable asset that you can have in your entire life, is having a growth mindset. So let's just define a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset a little bit to just really drive home this point. The idea of a growth mindset is that you embrace challenges, that you really welcome criticism and feedback. You believe that intelligence and talent can be developed. It's not something that you're just you're not like set with whatever situation you were born into. It's this idea that I'm going to continually bring as much effort as is required to accomplish my goals. And if my effort is not enough, then I need to level up myself to bring more effort, or I need to work harder, or I just need to
be resourceful. Yeah.
Or I just need to be more resourceful. And it's also this idea of, like, I'm going to keep trying and I'm never going to give up until I accomplish my goal. Like, that is a growth mindset. It's this idea of always persisting in the face of adversity, setbacks, anything that will get in your way, any challenges that you have, you always overcome them. I think this one is really important. You're inspired by other people's success. I think way too often people look at other people who have accomplished, let's say in health and fitness, an amazing physique. And they're like, wow, they look so great in a bathing suit. I wish I looked like that. And if you use that as a source of inspiration, then you have more of a growth mindset, and you say, okay, that's awesome. They have shown that this is possible and I can work to accomplish that, versus, oh man, he has such a great body and like, that's not fair. Like, he must have great genetics, or he must be cheating, or he must be doing X, Y, or Z, whatever.
Yeah, becoming more critical.
Yeah, you're heading in the wrong direction. I think always having the perspective of, I learn from my failures. I welcome failures, and I'm going to learn from them and become better from them. And always just having this desire to keep learning and keep improving. Those are really some of the fundamental pillars of a growth mindset. And then a fixed mindset is basically everything on the opposite side of that spectrum. Hey, I avoid challenges. I ignore criticism, and I get mad when people criticize or try to give me feedback or something. I believe that my intelligence, my talents, my potential is fixed, and I'm not where I want to be because I haven't been given the opportunities, or I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth or anything like that. And just this idea of like, hey, I'm going to give up easily because it's not worth it. If I hit adversity, I'm going to back down. I'm not going to push through that. I'm not ever going to work to improve. Why should I even bother? Because I don't have the skills that that guy has, or I don't have the financial resources that they have, or something like that. You're looking at everything through the lens of it's not possible for me because of this, or I'm not willing to continue pushing forward. So that's basically the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. And everything that I can possibly do to continually cultivate a growth mindset is a very important standard in my life.
Yeah.
So I know that's something that
I mean, I 100% agree with that. The only thing I would say in addition to it is like I know what it feels like to hear all that from the starting point, where from like I used to be an individual where I was like, I can't, I won't, like this isn't possible, or like I'm good with just kind of like chilling and being comfortable. It's like I've been there, and hearing like the like I wouldn't consider it motivational talk, but just like this conversation now, it's like I know that would go in one ear and out the other, and me just kind of solidifying like my thoughts of like, yeah, well, I'm the outlier, and I think a lot of people do get this sense of inspiration and hope from hearing people talk about it, but then they allow that the thought of them not able to do it just kind of like just consume them right after they hear it. And the best piece of advice that I can give is just like, you don't have to do everything at once. It's like you just take that next step, get someone in your corner, and as I mentioned a few minutes ago, it's like be resourceful. It's like I'm not the smartest dude, but I'm resourceful. I work extremely hard. I don't like I embrace failure, and I look forward to continuously growing myself in this area or areas, whichever I'm working in, and just build upon that. And so the amount of times that us, with our business, and you personally have stumbled and fallen, and we've had to get back up, it's like that's a part of the process, and you need to be ready and prepared for that. And the best way that you can prepare for that is by having the right people around you for that process to actually happen. And then, like we've been mentioning, that is where you start this kind of like domino effect or compounding of success, and kind of like solidifying, oh, this beaten path is the right path. And then it starts to be like a clearing more than just like a beaten path. And then you just start living your life, and then a few years down the road, you reflect on it and you're like, man, I'm so glad I just like started. And I don't know, and this ties in everything that we talk about, is the pain of discipline versus the pain of regret, and so forth. You just got to take the next step, but it's very hard to do it on your own. So get the right people, surround yourself with the same community, or around people that have the same mindset or desire, and then you guys can work together so you don't feel alone. I think that was something, especially going into the military, since like when I went into boot camp, like I said, honor, courage, commitment went in one ear and out the other. But I was in the same exact position as 95 other guys, and so that community and kind of eliminated the fear, because I knew that I was with other people doing the same difficult shit, and it allowed you just to take it one phase at a time. And then you're handed the kind of like, it's called the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor. It's just like the insignia of the Marine Corps. Given the pin, and then at the very end of boot camp, you're like, oh, you kind of have this moment. It's like, huh, that's how it works. And it just like really encompasses everything that we talk about. It's just, you just have to take one step at a time, have the right people in your corner, and then you're going to reflect and be like, well, damn, that was it. That was exactly what I wanted. So long-winded, but that's kind of like my input.
Yeah, one thing that you mentioned is just like not in the beginning, not feeling like it's possible for you, and even hearing some of this stuff and being like, yeah, well,
Yeah.
I'm the exception or something like that. One thing that has really stood out to me over the last 10 years of working to develop this growth mindset is hearing people talk about, I've heard this in numerous forms, but hearing people talk about this idea that the goals that you have set, there are other people in the world who have accomplished the goals that you have, and way more, who started with more adversity, who started with less resources, who started with more challenges from day one of their lives. And if they can do it, you have no excuse.
So this is kind of like out there, but I'm just going to say it because I literally just watched this movie yesterday. The movie Blood Diamond, right?
Yeah.
Like the story, like family gets taken, he puts into like slavery and everything, and then he goes on this whole mission of finding his family again and like rebuilding the life. And it's just like, I don't know, like stories like that. I know that was just a story, but like the whole concept, like that's something that does happen in the world. And just the thought of that, I'm just like, wow, I have it easy. And I'm complaining that like I didn't have any coffee grounds to put in my coffee this morning, like into my coffee maker this morning.
Yeah.
It makes me feel like, oh, I'm stupid, So it's just like, I think perspective is a big thing that people do lack, and I think to get into the growth mindset, to build that perspective, is to consume content, right? Like you said, with podcasts, books, like listening to people talk. It's like the more that you consume and the more that like other people's thoughts that you acquire, the more you can piece together. It's like, oh, I'm not that different. And then when you get to that point, then boom, you are ready for growth.
I love listening to biographies for this general reason, because I listen to people who have accomplished incredible things in the world, whether they have become a famous entrepreneur or athlete or anything. They have accomplished this amazing stuff, and it has required that they have gone through some serious stuff. They have experienced serious adversity, and if they can do it, going through all of that stuff and just really continuing to put that through my mind and say like, hey, this person went through way more than you're going through right now. It is possible for you too.
The fact that you hear these stories and the thought that you're having is like, I can't even fathom how he even thought that he could get through it. Like, that's what blows my mind. It's like, and then we, like, the situation that we're confronting every single day. It's like it no comparison.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I was talking with a friend a few weeks ago about this, but like life is actually like relatively easy.
Life is very easy.
Like just look back through the history of life, the history of humanity. Like, yeah, there's stuff going on right now that's difficult, and I'm not I don't say this to like diminish anybody's struggles, and maybe you're going through some stuff right now that's just really, really difficult, and I feel for that. But just taking a step back and looking at a whole for just like humanity and where we're at right now, life is actually really relatively easy. Yeah. And I think that's part of the problem. I think that's part of the reason so many people don't accomplish their goals, is because they have been conditioned to just take the easy approach to life. And like I can pull up Netflix and just I can binge watch things for 6 hours. I can drive past a restaurant and I don't even have to get out of my car. I can just like load up on a bunch of fatty food with additives in it that's just nasty for me and my health. Like all of this stuff is just like based around comfort and convenience. And yeah, there's some bad stuff going on in the world, but relatively speaking, we're kind of at the most peaceful time in the entire history of humanity. And we have the internet has provided every single possible opportunity for continued education, for having the resources to build your own business. Like the stuff we're doing now, like our whole business is online. That would not have been possible 20 years ago.
Right.
And even 10 years ago, lots of the stuff that we do would be difficult. Even 5 years ago, some of the stuff we're doing now wouldn't have been possible.
Right.
So I think just understanding that there are, yeah, I guess we're going a little off topic here, but the point is,
it just loops back to perspective, you know?
Yeah.
If you don't have perspective, you're not going to grow. I would hold firm with that.
Yeah.
You know, because if you stay in your bubble, you won't get out of it ever.
Yeah. So to get back on track, like the one of the number one standards that I hold myself to is just like, I am continually learning and growing. That is a standard that I hold myself to. And if I'm not better next month than I am now, that is not holding myself to that standard. So I welcome challenges. I welcome adversity. I rarely enjoy it in the moment, like going through it, but I am always growing from those experiences. I'm always better off from those experiences. And I think that's an important thing for people to keep in mind. Yeah. Even if you're going through some really difficult things, you're going to, most people are going to be better off on the other side of that. So that's one standard. Another standard that I hold myself to is that I must contribute meaningful work to the world. And I kind of view this as like my standard for impact. Like I really am focused on having an impact in the world. And I guess there's probably a selfless component to that. And like, I want to contribute, and maybe also kind of a selfish component. And like, I want to be like somebody who helps people, and I want to like have people's appreciation for doing that and stuff. So I don't know if that's even necessary to bring up, but the point is like, so I guess I was just saying like, maybe it's not entirely just like a charitable thing, but I am really driven by, hey, how can I help as many people as possible? How can I help save the animals? How can I help save this world? And even though, as we just talked about, like there are lots of amazing things in the world, and I think we're in a better time right now than arguably we ever have in human history. It's still there's still lots of things that can be improved. There's lots of people who need help. There's lots of animals, obviously, who need our help, and the world needs our help. So the average person spends 90,000 hours working in their career. And
that actually doesn't sound like that much.
That's a lot of time. 90,000 hours?
Yeah.
That's a lot.
I would figure, with an estimation, I would say more than that, but
yeah,
that's crazy to think about.
Well, you think it's a 40-hour weeks, 50 weeks a year. That's 2,000 hours. 2,000 hours times 45 years. Okay. That's how you get to about 90-ish. Okay. So some people work more, some people work less, but the point is you spend a lot of your life working. And I think it's important to derive meaning and purpose from that time. So I think I don't want to waste my time doing something that isn't meaningful and doesn't contribute to the world. And I personally feel like that's more important than money. That's more important than anything really. Like, are you happy doing what you're doing, and do you feel like you're making a difference in the world? I think that's really important.
I think life is all about just serving.
Yeah, that's another. So yeah, you might have. I think that's actually a good standard that you have. Is like, hey, my standard is I am going to act in service of others. which is very much along the lines of this one that we're talking about. Another standard that I hold is I must take care of my body. I'm a firm believer that if you don't have your health, then you don't have anything. If I do not have the right physical and mental space, because health really encompasses both of those, and emotional, and you can throw spiritual in there as well. But if I do not take care of my body, then I cannot be the person that I want to be in my career, to my family and friends, within my community. So that's why I think health is such a priority. And I also love that.
I think a lot of people discredit that. I think a lot of people put that stuff on the back burner because I don't know, the only person that you're with 24/7 is yourself. And if you don't feel completely not meaning to cut you off there, but it's like if you're not feeling 100% about yourself, like I am a very firm believer that there's no way that as much as you would want to, there's no way that you would ever show up to someone else powerfully or as powerfully as you want to. Thus, actually taking away from the potential of serving or impacting someone else's life. Because, I mean, we wake up, look at ourselves in the mirror, we take our showers, we see we can look into our own eyes and we can read ourselves perfectly. We can't lie, right? We see ourselves physically. And starting the day off, you immediately have positive or negative thoughts based off of how you're looking at yourself. And that just carries out with you throughout the entire day. Every time you're in a bathroom, there's generally a mirror, or if let's say you don't go to the bathroom, it's like, but you go throughout the day and you have coworkers and everything and you're talking face to face, like you might be in the conversation, but what else are you probably thinking about? That negative thing that you said about yourself, and you're like, oh, they're probably viewing it too. So it's just like this compounding thing, and then you're never actually 100% present as yourself or feeling confident in the person that you are. And so
yeah, you're never like truly authentic.
Yeah.
And
or
able to give 100% to any aspect of your life if you're not confident and you don't have your health and fitness in order.
Yeah, absolutely. Like for me personally, I would consider myself as a very weird individual, but I would try.
Confirmed.
Yeah, let's see. I don't diet. But like I actually used to be ashamed of it, and I kind of just didn't show anybody that side of me. And like, I don't know, because I feared judgment. I feared multiple things. And that's something that this business has allowed me to come to terms with. And I mean, now I just express myself however I want, and I feel, I don't know if peace is the right word. I feel comfortable.
I think freedom.
Okay. Yeah.
You feel free to express yourself because you have shown up in your own life to create the confidence and that perspective shift to just feel truly confident in your own skin.
Yeah.
And how you're going to live.
Yeah, totally. So I feel free of all that judgment and everything, and I'm able to look at myself in the mirror and just be completely straightforward with myself and just say okay, let's crush it, instead of having anything holding me back from growth in that day, or serving, and growth comes from serving. It's all intertwined, that's the cool thing about this. It's just if you're lacking one of those, it's taken away from the others. So it's you have to be improving in all these different areas.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty. This sounds vain, but it's true, and I think it's worth bringing up. Looking in the mirror and thinking, man, I look pretty good.
Of course.
That is actually,
everybody wants to look good naked.
That is huge.
And when I say look good naked, it's not. I am not putting a definition of what looks good into your mind. It's whatever you think is looking good. If you feel confident and proud with how you look, fantastic. For me,
that's the goal.
Yeah. For me, it's I want to see a six-pack. I want to see definition, and that's going to make me feel good. And that's not being vain or anything like that. It's just As it goes back to you, that's my standard for like my health. It's like that's where I want to. That's the level I want to be at. And if I fall away from that at all, then I'm not holding true to my standard. And so it's you ultimately, a lot of this stuff comes back to you defining it for what it is for you. I don't know. I think it's cool because we essentially could all have the same standards. We just define them differently.
Yeah. Yeah. When you look in the mirror and you can be like, man, I am truly confident and I feel really good about how I look. Then you start feeling better. You start showing up differently in your daily interactions with people and your relationships and stuff like that. You're just a different person because you are truly at peace, truly like confident in your own skin. And that is just
I have to say, this is kind of just like a side thing. The best feeling is not caring what other people think.
Yeah.
It's just like I can walk down the street. I could do whatever. Someone could say whatever to me, and it would not faze me at all, and I would probably just laugh it off.
Yeah, I don't think I can authentically say that it's not going to faze me.
So I say this because I was coming home from New York City last night, and I was walking through the subway to get to the Amtrak train. And you see some weird people in New York City. That, enough said. But anyway, there's this dude that came up and he he lifted his shirt up in front of me and he was like, "Oh, you like that?" And I was just like, and he was just like started cussing me out and everything. Totally strange. Like out of like I don't even understand what prompted this. But it's like I walked away just like laughing, but I know a lot of people would just like actually like allow that to affect them, And it's just like that dude's out of his mind. I was like, whatever. It's like I just carry on my day, and then I didn't say anything to him, and he started like cussing me out and calling me names and everything. It's just like I'm just like, hey, bro. It's like I don't care.
Yeah. Well, I would hope most people would just be like, hey,
yeah,
whatever.
And I hope so too. But I don't know. I think a lot of people do take certain words and situations and interactions personally, regardless if it's their fault or not, and it affects them. I know a lot of people that are close to me that do that, and so when you're able to eliminate that, it's talk about freedom. It's awesome. Yeah. But anyway, end of my rant.
Yeah, that's I think well, I guess I was just going to go a little bit in more detail.
Well, then we go for
but like
it.
when you're in the gym, you got to pump. You take like a sweatshirt off and you're wearing a tank top. Like that is a really awesome feeling. Or you like put on a suit and it just like fits perfectly.
I don't
like
own suits, so I don't know that.
That's like
dress blues. I do.
Yeah, there you go. But that probably doesn't fit too well either.
Actually, I had to squeeze myself into it.
Oh yeah, probably
by the end of the Marine Corps because it was fitted for me when I was in boot camp.
Yeah. Yeah. But the point is like just feeling good.
Yeah.
That carries out into every area of your life. So that's why I think that's obviously there's a health aspect. Like I want to be healthy long term. I want to live a long life and feel good inside. But I think the confidence part is a huge piece to that.
Absolutely.
That most people overlook, and it
they don't overlook it. They just push it aside.
Well, and it sounds a little vain, and I think that's why lots of people don't talk about it. But honestly, we're all thinking it,
right? Yeah.
So it's like it's something that is on everyone's mind. One of the reasons I love fitness so much, which is something that we talk about a lot, is that it's really a catalyst for life transformation. And I was giving that idea some thought as I was going through in preparing these notes, and I realized that it's kind of fitness helps to build a certain standard in your life. And I think that's actually what the catalyst is in other areas of your life, because you are proving to yourself that you are able to show up. You're able to put in hard work. You're able to do the things that are difficult on a daily basis. And if I can do that in the gym, I can do that in other areas of my life. And that was just an interesting kind of realization that I had, and that's a big part of why I feel like I must take care of my body, because I feel like what I do in the gym really trickles into every area of my life. And when I am feeling 100% on top of my workouts and I'm bringing the intensity and I'm just showing up every single day, the other challenges in my life are pretty easy in relation to that.
Yeah. Well, and this is exactly why I tell everybody, it's like you got to put yourself first before you help others, and going exactly off of what you just said. It's like, because it allows you, it's not a matter of you being selfish. It's allowing you to build the foundation of how you're able to and wanting to show up to others. Because again, if you don't show up to yourself, how are you supposed to do it for other people?
Yeah, exactly. All right. So the fourth standard that I really hold myself to, or just the fourth of the four that I'm going to be mentioning in the podcast, the fourth one that I hold myself to is that everything with my name on it must be done to the very best of my ability. Like, that is a really important standard that I've always held myself to. Throughout school, I was that kid who put in the extra time to get the A+ on every single project.
I wish I was that same kid.
Or I would do, like, I was a kid who, when assigned with a group project, would, like, the first meeting, I would just say to all the other kids, like, hey, I'm going to do all of this.
Okay, I did that.
And I'd just be like, your job, all of you, like, your job is to not touch what I'm doing.
Just don't tell the teacher I did everything.
Yeah. I said that sometimes too, because I knew, like, because the teacher would always say, oh, you need to have, like, other people participate. Like, everyone needs to participate. And I'm like, hey, it's totally cool. I'm not going to call anyone out, but I want to do all of this, and I promise you are going to get an A+. They're like, oh, okay. I'll just go play video games or something. So anyways, like, this is something that I've always, and I'm not saying that, like, that is a good thing.
By
or,
the
like,
way, you're
productive.
the friend in school everyone wanted, by the way.
Everyone did want to work with me because everyone knew that I was that kid. Like, oh yeah, I want to be partners with Leif because he's gonna do all my work for me. But the point is, so I'm not saying, like, that is necessarily a good mindset to have.
Right.
I guess being a team player is also an important standard. But the point is, I would always show up and I would do things to the very best of my ability. And I did not want to put my name on anything that wasn't done to the very best of my ability. And if you're just kind of being delegated projects and you have set student partners, like, I can't always know that what they're doing, I don't know that they are bringing the same standard, and most often they're not bringing the same standard, and that affects me. And
Right.
I wasn't okay putting my name on any group project that was not done to the very best of my ability. Anyways, the point is, like, this is something that I've applied throughout my entire life, and it's not just like the group project thing, but just if I have something that I am submitting, I am doing that to the very best of my ability. And I think it's so important to understand that your name is, like, your name really matters. Like, your name is kind of everything. That plus your health. It's really everything. Like, I want to build that as kind of my reputation, both to myself and to other people. And I really believe that how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yeah.
And whenever I have something that has my name on it, is something that I am contributing to a relationship or to my team or something like that, I need to, if I'm putting my name on something, it needs to be done to the very best of my ability. And that's just something that is unwavering in my life, because I personally feel that you can't have different standards in your life. Just like I said, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So I can't half-ass one project, put my name on it and be like, oh yeah, that's good enough. And then another one say, oh, this one needs to be done really well. Like, I need to put 100% into this and then put my name on it. So that's just how I have always approached things. And I think there are actually situations potentially where, like, maybe doing less work might have been more productive. This is actually something that I feel like we balance each other really well on. Not saying that you don't have the standard of like excellence with this, but
I think it comes to different definitions of that.
Yeah, maybe.
That's what it
and
is.
that's probably getting a little bit more too much into the weeds here.
Right.
But the point is, like, if I put my name on something, it needs to be done to the very best of my ability. And I just believe that if you're okay with walking over a piece of trash on the path, that on the ground, like, you're going to be willing to tolerate a lack of effort in other areas of your life. If you are okay with skipping your workouts when you just don't feel like it, then you're going to be willing to tolerate your excuses in other areas of your life. So that's what I'm talking about when I say, hey, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And I feel like when I put my name on something, it means I have done the very best of my ability here. So those are just some examples of standards that I hold myself to, and I just wanted to share those to give some perspective on how I kind of define standards and how you might begin applying some of these standards in your own life. So that's kind of step one, is setting these standards, and step two is strengthening these standards over time. This part is also really important, and it basically just comes down to continuing to do the thing every single time and just being unwavering in your commitment to a particular standard. If you are unwavering in your commitment, and every single time you execute a particular standard in your life, you are holding yourself to that standard and you're not compromising, you're going to strengthen those standards over time, and they're going to further be ingrained in your life. So you also kind of strengthen your standards every single time you say no to any distractions that could get in the way of your goals or your standards. Any single time that you delay gratification and you prioritize tomorrow over today. And every single time that you choose voluntary discomforts. I really love the phrase voluntary discomfort because that's a great description of what you experience in the gym. This is voluntary discomfort. Like, this is something that I'm pushing myself to, and that is a huge part of growing in the gym. So daily small choices really give you the opportunity to strengthen your standards. And I think it's important to ask yourself things like, hey, do I check the news or social media first thing when I wake up, or do I start feeding my brain with positive mental food? That's something where you're either kind of strengthening some standards and strengthening your resolve in life versus kind of detracting from that. Do you check your phone every 10 minutes for new notifications, or do you spend hours scrolling on TikTok every single day? Or are you really in control of your attention and how you focus throughout your day? I think that's another important one. And all of these like little distractions are opportunities for weakening your standards. And if you can choose to avoid those distractions or overcome them and choose voluntary discomfort and do these other things, that's when you strengthen your standards over time. So do you stay up too late or do you go to bed at the time required to get enough sleep to wake up at the time that you know you need to wake up at to accomplish your goals and stay on track with your ideal schedule? Do you eat based on cravings and convenience, or do you eat to fuel your body with healthy food because you know that's what your goals require and that's what kind of health you really want to have in your life? Do you skip your workouts when you just don't feel like it, or do you grab your workout bag anyways and get in the car, drive to the gym, and just get it done? And it could be the 10-minute commitment that we've talked about previously. Like, it doesn't mean that you necessarily you don't need to be crushing every single workout, but are you showing up every single day? Are you further strengthening those standards that you have in your life? That's really important. Do you buy worthless stuff that really doesn't contribute any value to your life? Or do you invest in your self-development, in your future? What are you kind of spending your money on? I think that's a really big one. And even worse, are you going into debt to buy useless stuff that you're not going to care about in 6 months? I think people who kind of fall into that trap, they end up, again, how you do one thing is how you do everything. If you buy crap, you're probably also putting crap in your mind and doing all these other things. Like, just set these standards in your life and hold yourself to them across all areas. Do you dwell on the past, or do you make the most of your present and really focus on the future and lean into the future? What are you really focusing your time and energy on? I think lots of people spend their energy on dwelling on the past and wrongs that other people have done to them, or adversity that wasn't fair, or circumstances that were not fair, or whatever it is. And if you're just dwelling on the past, you're not going to be moving forward constructively in any way. So it's really your duty to recognize these distractions, recognize these temptations, and kill them before they destroy your standards and therefore destroy your goals. One of the best ways to continually strengthen your standards is by making difficult choices easy choices. And this, I think, it's this idea of like reducing the required willpower to make the right choices for the accomplishment of your goals and to maintain standards in your life. So, for example, I tend to get easily distracted when I'm working on a computer. So one thing that I have done is I've installed a website blocker. So when I go into a period of work time, I cannot access YouTube, I can't access Facebook, Instagram, or anything else, even my email. I can't access these things for a set period of time. That's really helpful because I'm removing any temptation that I'm going to have to be distracted, so I don't have to use up a ton of willpower to stay on track with my standards and with my goals. So having high standards doesn't mean that you are just a machine. It means that you are constantly working to cultivate that standard and maintain that standard in your life. And there are lots of ways that you can kind of reduce the effort, the required willpower to stay consistent with that stuff by, for example, enabling a website blocker if you get distracted. Or another great hack for working is just, hey, I'm going to turn off my phone, or I'm going to put it in another room, or something like that, where I'm just I'm making it more difficult to do the things that I know are not constructive to my standards and my goals. And this can really apply to any area of your life, but whatever standards you set for yourself, figure out ways to reduce the required willpower to maintain and strengthen those standards over time. And when you set a standard, you really have to live by that standard. And when you catch yourself slipping on that standard, you have to automatically correct that right away. You have to install that website blocker if you're getting distracted. You have to tell yourself, hey, if I miss the gym, that is, I've given it some thought, and actually that is no longer okay with me. And I can't say, okay, well, I compromised once on my workouts and I skipped the gym. So it's a lot easier in that situation to say, okay, well, I'll just do it again. And then a third time's not going to hurt. It's a really slippery slope when you start going in that direction. So just understand, when you are faced with these temptations, faced with these distractions, when you compromise at all on your standards, that doesn't mean that you have failed forever, but you need to get back on track immediately and not allow that to establish a precedent in your life for not holding yourself to those standards and those goals. So really, the bottom line is that your standards must be non-negotiable. And that is, once your standards are non-negotiable, they're uncompromising, that is when you really can accomplish some amazing things in your life. So you hold yourself to standards like that, and your goals are going to become inevitable as long as your standards are aligned with your goals. So those are my thoughts. And that's why I think it's so important to set standards and work every single day to further ingrain those standards, further strengthen those standards in your life. And I think as you go through that process, it takes a long time, but as you go through that process, that is what pulls you towards your goals. And that is just, it's like a powerful magnet that just pulls you right to your goals. And that's when you can accomplish some really amazing things in life.
Yeah, a very powerful and pivotal point in where my kind of like standards got amplified was after the Marine Corps. Like I set my standards and my kind of like my moral code to a certain point, and then when I came back to where we grew up, like I was surrounded by a different crowd, right? With the people that I was with before the Marine Corps. And this is why I talk about like accountability and supporting the right people around you, is because if you're around a group of people for X amount of time, you don't actually see the fault in it or the negative side of things. You kind of just look at the positives. And so when I went from one group to the Marine Corps and then the Marine Corps back to that group, I was really able to, like, it just like smacked me in the face where I was like, oh, like this is what's holding me back. And so I think what a lot of people do is like, I think people do think about their standards. I think people do have like these goals and ambitions and so forth, but they allow the people around them to kind of hold them back from implementing them. So I think as far as implementing the standards that you set in your life, I would consider it to be relatively easy, but putting yourself in a position where you can execute them, I think that is the most difficult part in the whole process, is to actually take that first step and feel comfortable with it. And so for me, I had to completely remove myself from that a specific group of people, so I could then just implement everything I wanted to, because I knew if I tried to do that with them around me, I would just get resistance, and I knew that I would probably eventually break, and I was unwilling to allow that to happen, and so I was willing to step away.
That's a really great point. Like, it's easier to strengthen your standards when you're around other people who maintain those same standards.
Absolutely.
And that's a crucial point to keep in mind.
And I know for a fact that that's probably one of the most difficult situations or experiences anyone will ever have in their life, is having to address a relationship, whether that's with a significant other, or a friend, or a family member. It's just they're either going to be understanding or not. There's no in between, and so it's at that point, it's like, okay, well, if they're not understanding, like where does this relationship get put? And so there are relationships with past friends or family members, not past family members, but with current family members, where it's just like, okay, you're my family, but we don't agree, so I'm actually going to stay in a different lane, and like, I'll talk with you, but I'm not going to take anything that you say to heart. And so I separate myself, built up kind of this, built up my standards and solidified them in my life. And now it's like, I don't care. This is what was saying about, like, I don't care what people say anymore. It's like, I'm so ingrained with my standards and my moral code that they can come and go into my life without them even putting a dent into it or deviating me whatsoever. And so sometimes you do have to take a step out, and then you can step back in. But I think that's just very dependent on who you are as a person, your personality, your relationship with the people, and the level of understanding on their end as well. But that push forward, and surrounding yourself with the right people, is going to allow you to solidify your standards so much more quickly, and build upon them so much more effectively and efficiently. So yeah, I think everyone has standards. They just don't execute them or have defined them. We think about this stuff constantly, of like the do's and don'ts, right? But we don't actually note it in the moment.
The only thing worse than not having defined standards is having bad standards.
Yeah.
And I think lots of people have those as well. Where it's like, oh, I see a piece of trash and I don't pick it up. Or like, oh, if I am confronted with hard work, like, I give up. Which kind of gets back to the fixed mindset stuff that we're talking about. But
actually, to go off the trash thing, now
you want to talk about trash stuff.
to go off the trash thing just real quick. This was probably like a year or so ago, but I remember, like, I picked up a piece of trash in a grocery in Giant's parking lot, and I brought it to the trash can, and someone that was walking right behind me asked me why I picked it up, and I said because I didn't want it to be out on the ground or anything.
Because you won't pick it up.
And then they're like, oh, well, that's what the workers are for. I'm just like, and then at that moment, I'm just like, man, there are really pieces of shit. It's like, I just don't understand that. It's like, how can you, like, I don't know. I just can't fathom that thought of saying, oh, well, that's not me, that's them. And it's that type of attitude and thought process that makes you stay stuck in the position that you're at.
Yeah, it's very true. So that's going to be a wrap for this episode. And I want to give you some action steps as you kind of take away your thoughts from this episode. What are your standards that you have set in life? I really want you to think through this, because this is going to determine where you end up in life and what goals you accomplish. What standards do you truly hold yourself accountable to? And if you don't have clear standards in your life, then you need to work to set those. And the sooner you set them, the sooner you're going to be setting yourself up for living life on your terms and accomplishing the goals that you truly want to accomplish. So that's your takeaway from this episode. Set clear standards for your life and work to also share those with other people, and surround yourself with other people who maintain similar standards, like Anders was talking about. Have those people help to hold you accountable and hold them accountable as well. It's really a lot more difficult to compromise on your standards when the people around you know what your standards are and what you're trying to hold yourself to. So the simple fact of the matter is, most people in life do not have standards. They go through their entire life and they don't really have any concrete positive standards to hold themselves to. And that's why most people end up not living a life that they feel happy about. They don't feel confident. They don't feel successful. They don't feel authentically, truly happy. And what a shame it would be to get to the end of your life and not be able to legitimately say, to honestly say, I have lived life on my terms and I held myself to some impressive standards. So
yeah, that terrifies me.
So lots of people, even listening to this podcast, might be thinking, oh, that sounds like a good idea. I'd love to set standards. I'll definitely set standards for my life, but then you're not actually going to take any action. You're going to go throughout the rest of your day and you're never going to put pen to paper or define them in any way. So that is what I am going to hold you to. That's something that I'd really like you to seriously consider doing, is taking pen to paper, writing them down, and getting clear on what your standards are and what you're going to hold yourself to. For anyone who goes through and just listens to content like this without actually putting this stuff into action, you are actually setting a standard of consuming positive knowledge, information without taking action. And that's not a helpful standard either. One of the number one standards that I mentioned is I am constantly working on self-improvement and self-development. That is a standard I hold myself to. And I'm not saying my standard is I listen to helpful podcasts or books or anything like that. I listen to those things and then I implement them. I work on applying them to my own life so I can further develop. So that is the standard that I would challenge you to hold yourself accountable to. So set the standard right now of someone who takes action, and then work to strengthen your standards every day.